I asked FPL experts to name me one player you should have on your game week 1 draft and one you should be looking to avoid. And starting off today's video is my first expert and a good close personal friend. It is Golden Goal Fantasy Football. Go and check him out as well as all the other experts in today's video. All the links for their channels and Twitters will be in the description. He has recommended that you go for Eze as a potential player on your game week 1 draft, and it gets the FPL Tom seal of approval for me. He is in my current draft, loving having him in here. He could be massively explosive for Crystal Palace. He's got to step up and become the main man now that Wilfred Zaha has departed for Galatasaray. As well, it potentially looks like Michael Elise could depart from Crystal Palace to Chelsea or Manchester City. So again, furthering the impact and the importance of Eze, potentially going to be on penalties as well. The fixture in game week 1 is immense as well. Sheffield United look piss poor in pre-season, haven't really signed anyone of any kind of quality, especially in terms of Premier League, so I definitely think they're going to be the bottom club and a club we need to target with our players. I give this one the full approval of FPL Tom. It's got the experts approval and a player you should be looking to have on your game week 1 draft. Right, let's move on to his avoid, and it is Jackson, a player very hyped in the kind of FPL community on Twitter at the moment. Absolutely killing pre-season, putting in some very impressive performances that are catching the eye. 12 goals, 4 assists for him last season, but I can 100% understand why Golden Goal has gone for him as an avoid, and I'm also going to add him into the avoid category as well. I just think he's a player that potentially, with the Chelsea assets, we need to give them a little bit of time to kind of understand who's going to be playing where, what kind of system they're going to be playing as well. And for that extra 0.5 million on your draft, I would recommend going for Nkunku as well, because he's potentially going to be on penalties and free kicks as well, which just adds that little bit of extra spice. Plus, he potentially can play 2 positions as the number 9 or potentially as the number 10, which gives him that little bit more versatility over a player like Jackson. So 100% agree with our first expert on his kind of player he's going to recommend you to buy and his avoid. Right, let's move on to our next expert's 2 picks. Not So Template FPL is our next expert that I did consult for 2 players for you to have and not have on your game week 1 draft. His player he has suggested is Gabriel Martinelli. He's made his way into my team, and we kind of agreeing on similar points about Martinelli. The fact that he's potentially going massively under the radar, only 13.2% owned. A lot of people switching to players like Jesus and Trossard over their kind of pre-season performances, but Gabriel Martinelli for me is still one of Arsenal's best attackers and will be in that starting lineup come game week 1, where he will shine, ladies and gentlemen. So this player gets the seal of approval from me and from the expert. If you are making a draft, I would be looking to try and get Martinelli into them. His obviously other reasonings as well is he thinks that Martinelli is going to start a lot more games over the likes of Trossard, and he prefers him to Gabby Jesus. So again, I think Martinelli, fantastic pick, gets the seal of approval. Let's move on to Not So Template FPL avoid, and it is Darwin Núñez, a player, well, I'm not going to agree with this one. I am not going to agree with this one. I'm trying to figure a way to get him into my draft, because in pre-season, ladies and gentlemen, this man is cooking. He is cooking up something very special indeed. Absolutely killing pre-season so far. 4 goals and an assist for him. And Jurgen Klopp has been very kind of productive, nice, I don't know what the word is to describe it, but very kind of flattering about his pre-season performances and his kind of attitude to the change in system at Liverpool, which is so far working out very well and potentially could benefit him throughout the season. So I think it might be worth a little bit of a wait. I think that's where kind of Not So Template FPL is kind of going down. I think he will be an option at some point this season. With the fixtures not being amazing for Liverpool as well, it potentially is worth going for someone like an Nkunku, a Jesus, over Núñez, but I'm not agreeing with him as an avoid because I'm trying to get him into the team myself. I think he could be a good differential to have in game week 1, so I'm not agreeing with the expert on this one, but let me know what you think of it down in the comments section below. Ben Chilwell is the next player that has been recommended as one you should have on your Game Week 1 draft by the FPL Experts over on Twitter. And again, I'm in agreement with this one. 5.5 million, only 7.1% owned. Chelsea's fixtures after Game Week 2 pretty much are amazing. So I definitely think we're going to be going for a lot of Chelsea assets. In pre-season as well, Ben Chilwell has been very impressive, especially if you look at his heat maps, the positions he's getting himself into. You imagine he is going to get a lot of goals and a lot of assists. We've obviously seen his capability over the past few seasons. Last year wasn't great in terms of kind of keeping fit, but that was exact same with Reece James as well. So, you know, both players not doing ideal, but this season, new system, new manager, he's looking good, he's looking very fresh, so I'm agreeing with this. It gets the FPL Tom seal of approval as a potential player you should have on your Game Week 1 draft. I'm agreeing with the expert because Ben Chilwell is looking very, very good indeed in pre-season. The fixtures are there. I think the only kind of hesitation you could potentially go for is what I'm thinking of doing is going Estupinian Game Week 1 and 2, and then Game Week 3 switching to a Chilwell, James, or a potential another Chelsea defender that maybe kind of shines through at some point in those opening games. You always get it, one or two players. But yeah, I like this as a pick from the expert. Right, let's move on to his avoid, and it's a controversial one, ladies and gentlemen. It's Gabby Jesus. Now, this player is in a lot of people's teams, been in a few of my drafts as well. I'm not going with the avoid for this one. I kind of asked him what his reasonings were behind the avoid, and he suggested that he prefers going for someone like Martinelli and going for Jackson or Nkunku up front, which, you know, I can see. I don't think there are as many good midfielders compared to forwards at the moment. Kind of the 7.5 other 8 million midfielders. There's a little bit of minutes, positional changes, new system risk with them. Obviously, like you're thinking like your Madisons, your Diaz's, maybe like Richarlison's if Kane leaves. Like there's so many players that like you're umming and ahhing about, and I think Nkunku and Jackson are probably that little bit better, so I can 100% see why he'd say avoid, but for me personally, I'm not putting Jesus in the avoid category. Spent a large majority of last season out injured, got 11 goals and 7 assists, still absolutely cooking in that Arsenal attacking lineup. They're going to have some really good fixtures as well come game week, I think 7 or 8, where they kind of tail off, so I definitely think he's a player that you don't need to be avoiding. I think maybe there are combinations that you potentially go for, but I really like Jesus as a pick, so I'm not going to suggest you avoid him in game week 1. Let me know what you think of that avoid down in the comment section below from our expert, and let's move on to some more experts picks. FPL Black Wolf is our next expert that I did consult for players to potentially have in your game week 1 draft, and he has suggested Bruno Fernandes. You know I'm hot on this player, you know how I feel about this man. I am very much in the camp. It gets the FPL Tom seal of approval. I've banged on all season about his underlying data, and as you can see on screen, XA of 15.62 from last season. This guy was super unlucky. Going to be on penalties as well. Looks like Manchester United are going to get Højlund as well, so going to have a potential striker in that lineup as well, so he is going to be cooking. I don't think there's too much I can really say on this one. I 100% agree with the expert's pick for this one. And let's just move on to his avoid, because I'm 100% agreeing with this one. I'm happy to have Bruno Fernandes, not left a single one of my drafts. So I'm agreeing with FPL Black Wolf. He is a player, I've said it, an essential player you need to have in your game week 1 drafts. Right, let's move on to his avoid, and it is Evan Ferguson. Now, this is a player I think, again, FPL Black Wolf has got both his picks nailed on. He is a player that you do not want to be having in your game week 1 draft. There are so many attacking options within that Brighton kind of attack. So many players that could come in and out, and Evan Ferguson hasn't been starting games. It looks like it's been Danny Welbeck as the starting forward in pre-season. Obviously, João Pedro and Undav kind of getting into the mix as well. Looks like potentially Undav could leave, so maybe offers a little bit of opportunity. But at 6 million, I think your money's better utilised elsewhere, because what are you going to do with him after these 3 game weeks if he's not been playing as well? It looks like De Zerbi is going to just drip feed him into the side yet again as he did last season. So I'm with FPL Black Wolf on this one. I think there are so many better other Brighton assets to go for. Personally, I think João Pedro at 0.5 cheaper is the much better option than going for Evan Ferguson. But let me know what you think of it down in the comment section below, and let's move on to our next experts picks. And the next player we're going to take a look at is Richarlison. One of the experts has recommended him as a little bit of a cheeky differential pick. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? I'm feeling it. It's only if Kane goes that this does potentially become an option, and if Spurs don't spend that 80 to potentially 100 million price tag they are going to get for him. 7 million, going to be picking up the clean sheet points as well, and maybe even, I'm throwing this out there, potentially on penalties as well. Took a few for Everton. He did a few seasons ago. 1 goal, 5 assists for him last year. Wasn't a great campaign, but we've seen the capability this man does have for Everton, for Brazil. He can be cooking at times, ladies and gentlemen. And at 7 million, if he's the leading forward for a top 8 side, yeah, we have to classify Spurs as a top 8 side. They ain't a top 6 side. Come on, lads, come on. I know there's going to be some angry comments, but you ain't. So I think he does offer a really good option. He's not going to get the seal of approval from me, but I like this as a potential differential pick and can 100% see why the FPL expert has potentially suggested this as a player you should be looking to have on your game week 1 draft. Right, let's move on to this expert's avoid, and it is Matoma, a very highly owned player at 37.4% owned, 6.5 million. I was hot on him at the start of the season, now kind of leaning a little bit more towards the avoid camp, so I'm going to give this one the seal of approval. I think it was only 1 attacking return since game week 31 for him as well, which is it's piss poor, isn't it? It's not great. Obviously, there's the new emerging talent as well at Brighton. The guy who was playing the other night, I can't think of the top of his name off the top of my head. He absolutely just exploded with 2 goals, playing in a very similar position to Matoma. There's obviously so many attacking quality depth players as well there that it is going to be difficult to determine expected minutes, and I think it's just worth avoiding Brighton kind of potential minute risks attackers. So I 100% agree with this expert's pick to avoid Matoma. The final expert for today's video is going to be FPL Prem Tipster. Now we're having a little bit of a kind of conflict here between Jackson in and Jackson out. FPL Prem Tipster is recommended that you do go and get him in your game week 1 draft, and he is going to be one of these controversial players. I think we spoke quite a lot about him earlier. I think I personally prefer going for Nkunku if I was going to get a Chelsea forward. Might as well just spend that extra 0.5 million to get a player I think who's going to potentially have higher expected minutes, potentially be on penalties and free kicks as well, and just got that little bit more star power potential about him. I think that's the way I'm going to go with this one. I do like Jackson as a potential differential pick if he can continue to keep cooking in pre-season, but we kind of spoke at length about this one earlier in the video, so it isn't going to get my seal of approval. But let's move on to FPL Prem Tipster's avoid for your game week 1 draft, and it is going to be Kieran Trippier. Now I'm agreeing with him on this one. I think you need to be avoiding all Newcastle assets up until around game week 6, game week 7 when their fixtures do turn. They've all had a price increase, especially Kieran Trippier, who's gone from 5 to 6.5. He is not worth it at that point, ladies and gentlemen. Second half of the season, he was dismal. He wasn't great. He was on to break the kind of record for defender points scored last season in the first half of the campaign. Didn't really pick up too many clean sheets or attacking returns in the second half of the season. Obviously, with Newcastle's fixtures not being great as well, at an elevated price point and super high ownership that is obviously going to diminish as he's not picking up returns over the first few game weeks, it is an easy avoid. I can't believe 34.8% of the game do own this man at the moment. He is a strong avoid for me, and I 100% agree with this expert, FPL Prem Tipster, recommending you avoid Trippier, and I'm in that camp as well. If you did enjoy this kind of expert video, then we'll do some more. And if you want to be involved, go over to my Twitter, a link to that in the description, and next time I put a tweet out, you can get involved and potentially have a little shout out within this video. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and enjoy the rest of your day.